Red Zone from Antler King. That's this episode of Death by Bunjie. Again. I like Antler King's Red Zone because it's high in protein. It puts out tons of forage for the deer. The deer love it. The fawns even eat it. If that's okay with them, then it's okay with me. What is in Antler King's Red Zone? Well, there's a number of things in it. There are two different kinds of soybeans. It's got the high protein forage and grain soybeans both. It has high protein forage peas, what they refer to as succulent buckwheat, and it has sunflowers in it. So it's got a really good mix of high protein foods. It is just great stuff that will generally benefit the deer all year long. On the downside, the deer love it. They will eat it like you wouldn't believe, and they will just basically graze on this stuff until it's gone. So you really have to have a little bit of room to plant it. I bought 2 bags to plant this spring. I suspect I will be buying 2 more bags to plant later in the summer for a fall food plot as well, if I'm going to replace it later this summer or later this fall. This is the kind of product that you can plant as a summer food plot. You can plant it in the spring like I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks here around the beginning of May. It is definitely, just like last year, a great choice for your spring food plots. You can plant this in the fall for a fall food plot as well, and it makes a great wintertime food source if there's any of it left for the deer at that time. You don't want to plant it before the ground warms up. You've got to have soil 50, 60 degrees, pretty regular soil temperatures before this stuff will start to grow. So don't get in a rush. Plant it in the beginning of May here in northeastern Pennsylvania. Seems like a good time to plant it. That's what I did last year. Worked out perfect. It might vary depending on where you are. Now, it also, the plants in here, in order for them to become palatable, in order for them to reach their maximum level of nutritious value for the deer, those plants need about 60 days to reach that level of maturity. So you have to have at least 60 days before your first frost, because that'll kill these plants and stop them from growing. Obviously, what you're going to want to do is plant it at least 60 days before the first frost if that's going to be your fall food plot. For me, that just means I'm going to be planting this sometime at the end of July, early August, something like that. Should have plenty of time for these crops to mature so that if there's any of this food plot left, the deer will have plenty to eat over the winter. Now, these are pretty good sized seeds. You can see here through this little package right here that there's some pretty good sized seeds in here. If you look at them, I mean, sunflower seeds are in there, and then the pea-sized seeds and all the soybean type seeds, they need to be covered when you plant them. So the way I did it, I make sure that my pH is good, do a soil test, make sure you have proper pH in your food plot area, go through and spread that lime as needed. Then after I have sprayed the weeds and killed them all with Roundup or glyphosate, kill the weeds, then I till it up with the rototiller, or you could plow it over with your plow, whichever you prefer. Drag it, till it, disc it, whatever you prefer to do. Once that's done and you've got the ground torn up pretty good and all the weeds killed, go ahead and broadcast your seed on top. Follow the directions on the bag. You should be just fine in terms of the amount of seed you want to apply. Now, because these seeds, though, are pretty good sized seeds, the birds are going to come in, the birds are going to eat them. So to prevent that from happening, you do have to cover them. And to get proper germination, the general rule of thumb is you want to double up on the size of the seed. These seeds are maybe 1/4 of an inch. So you don't want to bury them more than 1/2 an inch. About 1/2 an inch should be good. What I do after I broadcast it, I just go through and I just drag them a little bit and make sure I cover up any of the seed that's there. Once it's covered, I roll it all out with a lawn roller, nice and firm, pack it down good, and do that on a day just before you get a little bit of rain. You should be just fine. That'll keep the birds off of it. They won't bother it. Once it turns into a plant, they'll leave it alone. And generally speaking, I didn't have any trouble. It grew just fine. If you really want to make sure it's going to be successful, then you can fertilize it according to the bag's instructions. You might want to do a soil test to make sure you're giving it the proper amount of fertilizer. But if you fertilize it according to the bag's instructions after you've packed the soil, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Let the rain hit that, work the fertilizer into the ground, feed those plants, and sure enough, you're going to have a nice crop of red zone as a result. Now, like I said, the deer will hammer this stuff. You are going to have all of this eaten. You're getting your money's worth. Now, at first I thought, well, that's no good. The deer are eating it all. What kind of a food plot is this? But then you start to realize that if the deer are that happy with it, if the deer are eating it, they're getting a benefit. And in the end, that makes me happy. I get a benefit from that too, of course. So don't be worried if the deer do go through and eat it. One thing I recommend you do, however, is put a basket out there and stake it down somewhere in your food plot so you can see those plants growing, and you can tell the difference between where the deer have grazed and where they haven't. Last year when I did that, there was a several foot difference in terms of the height of the plants, and you could see the deer just were eating that and devouring that food plot like you wouldn't believe. That just tells me that this is a good product. That just tells me that I did a good job and that it grew properly and I grew a good food plot. In the end, that's exactly what I want. I want the deer to go through and get that summer nutrition. I want does to have a lot of nutrition so they can properly nurse their fawns. I want the fawns to be introduced to nice healthy food. I want them to grow up strong so they can survive the winter. And I want the bucks to have the maximum amount of nutrition that they can get in order to build those nice big antlers and all that good stuff. In the end, it's win-win. Don't just get discouraged if the deer eat all of your food plot. That's ultimately a good thing, and all that told me is that this year I wanted to plant 2 bags. I wanted to go for a full acre somewhere if I could of this product instead of just 1 bag. Only when I get to the point where I have a lot of this left over, then I'll know that I'm planting too much of it. One more thing about Antler King's Red Zone food plot seed is that I recommend you buy the seed directly from the company. If you follow the instructions and you have fresh seed from Antler King, you're going to be just fine. So buy it from a source, whether it's directly from Antler King or directly from some company that you trust. But buy it from somebody whom you trust for it to be good, fresh seed and not something that's sat on a shelf somewhere for a couple of years. That increases your chances of it growing and growing well. You do that, you shouldn't have any trouble. The other thing I recommend you do with this, just like any other Antler King product, is see if one of your local establishments or directly from Antler King, see if they can give you the flyer that comes with the Antler King products. That outlines all of the Antler King products. It tells you what time of year those products are valuable and what times they are less valuable, when you want to plant them, when you don't. Gives you some tips as far as fertilizer and lime are concerned, and basically just helps you get the most out of these different products. I really like the Red Zone product. I give it a thumbs up across the board. It is something that I'm going to incorporate every year. I'm going to try and just do some plots of this to get that summertime nutrition, to give the deer a little bit something of a choice from the clover that I have a lot of going this time of year. I recommend, if you're interested in it, give it a try as well. Hopefully you found this video interesting. If you did, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow our Facebook page as well. Go over and check that out. Put a lot of neat Facebook stuff on there, food plot related posts and trail camera pictures, all that fun stuff. So check that out as well. And until next time, all hail Bunjie. It's the Red Zone. Get it? It's like the Hog Zone.
Yeah, I know.